David Harris from your suite here inside Yeoman Stadium. Do you spend the entire game day here, or what? Are you moseying around?
I'm moving around quite a bit on game day. Some of it depends on who I have in here, who's, if I'm entertaining donors or supporters, then maybe I'm spending more time in here. If it's family in here, then probably spending more time trying to get to different places. So trying to get over to see the visiting AD, or trying to get to see some of our letter winners down in the letter winners lounge, or just being here in Glazer, where there's always plenty of people to interact and talk to. So you try to make the rounds, try to see what's going on, and be as many places as you can.
Be honest, though, if the family's up here and you're trying to just run around, is it just to kind of get a little bit away from the family?
I think this is probably their favorite time when I leave the suite and they can be in here by themselves. So they're like, yeah, Dad's gone. We can party until he comes back, because when he comes back, then he's going to be, watching the game and trying to make sure that we're focused in on what's going on. So, I think they're probably the ones that have a good time when I'm not around.
What is David Harris like watching a Tulane football game? Let's start with football.
Yeah, so usually I'll try to be fairly calm, but that doesn't always work. I will say that I'm more excitable the fewer people that are around. So if I'm watching a game at home, which I guess I never really have a chance to be able to do, at least from a football standpoint, then I'm going to be a lot more demonstrative. I'm a person who can yell at the TV like anybody else, and yell at the officials from my living room like anybody else might do. Usually when I'm in this setting, I'm a little bit calmer than that. But if you're in here, you'll hear me.
I've sat next to you at least once for a basketball game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I can't get over here for football, but I think it was in Birmingham last year. You were sitting next to me at the broadcast table, mm-hmm. And I was very nervous. I was like, all right, Corey, be on your best behavior. Don't yell at officials. But it's good to know that you're doing the same thing, just privately.
Absolutely. And I think that's we go to these events in part because we want to engage, right? You want to try to find a way to do it respectfully. But all of us, whether you're an athletics director or just someone who's coming to enjoy the game, you want to blow off a little bit of steam and enjoy yourself and have a good time. We want to make sure that we're always encouraging our fans to do it in a way that's respectful of our student athletes and our guests, and our people do a great job with that. But sports is an emotional thing. And so if you're watching it, if you're enjoying it, if you're at the game or you're at home, there's nothing wrong with blowing off a little steam.
We're going to talk about kind of the fall so far for Tulane athletics, what you have been doing throughout the last 6-7 weeks or so since competition restarted here on campus. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff that you've been reaching out to fans about here, particularly over the last few weeks. We're going to talk about quite a bit of things here, and this is not going to be the final chat you and I do over the course of the athletic season here. But so far, this is when people hear this, we'll be into October. Your thoughts overall, the 30,000-foot view on what Tulane athletics has been at the start of the fall semester?
So overall, very positive. If you look at our sports programs and what we're doing, from a football standpoint, now going, into an open week and being 4-1 and having beaten 2 Power 4 opponents, we're really in a good position and playing at a high level. I think if you look across the entire conference, look at the American, I run into people all the time who say, man, it looks like this year that group of 5 or group of 6 spot for the college football playoff, all the teams are from the American. It looks like the American is going to be in that position. So if we can play well, then we have a chance to be in that spot. And they're right. It's still obviously early. There's a lot of season left to play. But really happy that our football team is playing well. We have a lot of big games ahead, but just excited to be able to be, in a stadium for a game like Duke, where we have all the people that we have, where we have the student section full, and just have a great environment. I naturally like night games at home, so being able to have that with Duke was tremendous, and then obviously being able to have it coming up with ECU gives us another chance to be able to have a special environment. Then you look at our volleyball program, and we're, I believe, 9-4 now, and have won, I think, 5 out of the last 6 games. So certainly off to a strong start. I believe 1-1 now in conference play. And so we're giving ourselves a chance to really have a good season. You certainly want to do what you can in the non-conference to be able to have success, to be able to prepare yourself for the upcoming matches. And I think we've had a chance to be able to do that, so that now we roll into our toughest games of the year with conference play. And I think our team is ready to be able to continue to have a good season. And then in cross country, to be in a position where, okay, the teams are nationally ranked, which is tremendous. I think I just saw yesterday where with the Coaches Association poll within the South Central region, both our men and women are first.
Yep.
So I tweeted something out, I believe, this morning, just saying what a great job that Adrian is doing with our overall program. He and his staff are just fantastic, and they give us a chance to be able to have success. And one of the things I really enjoy about him from the very first time I met him until today is that no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the resources are, no matter what the facilities are, Adrian is a guy who believes that he can have success. He can find a way to have success, and he's doing that. And sometimes that can be challenging for coaches or for any of us that many times can measure the degree to which we have success based on whether or not things all line up the way that we want them to. He and his staff do a great job of saying, whatever the circumstances are, whether or not we have a track on campus or not, whether or not we always have the resources we'd love to have, enough scholarships, those sort of things, we're going to win championships. That's just what we're going to do. We're going to win championships every time we have a chance to compete. And so I really respect and admire what he is building with our program there.
The fall semester has already seen the accolades, the success that you just alluded to. Sailing is back to where they usually are. They got off on the right foot in their first couple of events here as well. And now we've got, by the time this comes out, swimming's underway, bowling's underway. We know tennis is underway here as well. It's not exactly the busiest time of year because that's February, March. That's when it really gets cranked up here. But to see all of these programs take steps forward or continue what we have been seeing from them the last few years. Football, sailing, this is something that we see from them a lot. Now cross country, this is what we're expecting. But to see volleyball take the step forward that we're seeing here as well, the young rosters that tennis and golf has, they're putting things back on the right track here. There is a real ascension, it feels, with just department-wide. The programs that are all starting to rise up together. Is that kind of the sense that you're feeling as well?
It is. And just when you start to feel that things can, change or alter fairly quickly, that's just the nature of athletics and nature of sports. But absolutely, we feel like we are riding very positive momentum across so many of our sports programs. And that's one of the things that's really fun about the job is when you're in a position where you're watching young people have success and you're watching the coaches who work so hard have success, and you can go and support them and watch them compete at a high level. And, you'd never want to take something like that for granted because I've worked in the industry for 27 or 28 years, and you don't always have your sports programs line up to where so many of them are having successful runs and doing positive things. And so it's really enjoyable to be in this position and to be hopefully a part of trying to create an environment where that can continue and they feel like they're getting the support they need as well as the resources that they need to continue that ascension and to continue to have the kind of success that we've been enjoying.
As you've been traveling around, it's been a huge part of your tenure so far is to go meet people at their doors, donors, alums. I believe you were in Chicago last week, right before the football trip to Tulsa. Now that you're second full year starting the position here, what are the things that you are asked about from alums, donors, fans, and have those questions changed from when you first took the job here?
You know, the questions really haven't changed.
Really?
They've been pretty similar in that I still get lots of facility questions. You know, what's going on with indoor practice facility for football or other things that we're working on. There's lots of questions about, you know, how we're going to line up in any type of conference realignment scenario. You know, what are our plans to be able to get to a Power Four conference? There's still, you know, lots of questions about that. Since we've hired Coach Summerall, I get a lot of, hey, Coach Summerall's a great coach. What are we going to do to retain him? How are we going to keep him here? I get a lot of questions along those lines. And then recently, since the settlement of the House case, you know, a lot of questions about the overall state of college athletics and how does Tulane fit into that? And, you know, is it sustainable? And how do we create a scenario where we can continue to have success here? And so everybody's kind of weighing in on the craziness that is our industry right now, because people are kind of curious as to what this is going to look like in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years. What's the direction that we're heading in? And those of us who are practitioners, those of us who are in the industry, we're at the front of the line trying to, you know, figure that out as well. There's not a lot of clarity about what's going to happen in the near future. So we're doing what we can to live in the reality today and to continue to work hard to make sure we position here Tulane Athletics to be the very best that it can be. So those questions have been pretty standard for most of the time that I've been here.
It was pretty clear following the football win over Duke. I talked with Justin Berger, who leads the development team on the podcast, and you sent out some communication to fans about the Green Wave Talent Fund. Why was that the correct time in your mind to, I think, put this back on the front of minds of the fans, of the alums, of the donors about what the Green Wave Talent Fund is and how important it is to keeping not just football where it is, but the rest of the department where you want it to be?
Well, we felt like it was a good time because we were just coming off of one of our more successful games during the time that I've been here, considering the opponent and the atmosphere. And so it just felt like the right combination of things had come together to where with our sport that's most visible, football, we were playing well, we'd had success, we'd had a great environment, as I mentioned, being here for a night game and being able to see the plays basically sold out, being able to see the student section feel like it was just so much positive talk, as you mentioned, about our sports programs, and certainly football leading the way in that regard. And so it was a great opportunity to be able to talk about how do we continue this? How do we continue this with football, but how do we continue this with our other programs as well, and put ourselves in a position to where we can continue to have nights like this, that we can continue to have great turnouts because people are pleased with not only the environment, but the product that they're seeing on the field or on the court or in the different venues that we have. And one of the things you learn being in these positions is that people like to be a part of something that's successful and positive that's already moving forward, right? Intuitively, you would think, okay, if you're really struggling and you need people to help you to have success, that's when people want to jump on board because they see a struggling situation, a struggling program. They want to put resources and time into it to make it better. But what you actually find is that people are more likely to want to be a part of something that's already been successful, that's already doing positive things, and they can jump on that moving train, so to speak, because people like to be a part of things that are moving in the right direction, and they like to be a part of programs that are having success. And so, as you mentioned in the beginning, we have a number of different programs that are ascending, and so it felt like a good time to really talk about how do we continue this, because we know moving forward, things like the Green Wave Talent Fund are going to be the biggest determining factor on whether or not we can continue our on-field success. There are a number of things that go into having successful programs, from having the right coaches and the right student athletes and the right facilities and all the things that we've come to expect. But this new element of providing compensation for student athletes is one that has quickly gone to the top of the list as far as what our coaches share with us, as far as what student athletes, both prospective and current, share with us, as far as what they are considering and what they are finding being important in this particular environment. So we felt like, there's no reason that we shouldn't be sharing a very clear message that this is the biggest way that we can continue to have success. And we really need everybody to invest in helping us to be able to attract and retain the very best student athletes.
How has the rollout, I guess, for lack of a better term, of the Green Wave Talent Fund been since it got announced in the spring, and now the initiation of it starting in the summer? Now that we're into competition, into fall semester, what has the feedback and the response been, not just from your programs here, but from people who are contributing to the Green Wave Talent Fund, as well as people who maybe have more questions about that and what it does, along with what the Green Wave Club and where their money's going, I guess would be the question there. How has the feedback been since this all started back in July?
The feedback has actually been very positive. I think people understand why it's important. And because people are excited about what's happening with Tulane athletics, it helps to be able to give them a clear picture of how that continues. Because as we were talking about, okay, what are the questions that you get? I don't know that I exactly get this question stated this way, but in some form or fashion, the feeling you get is people want to know, how can we keep this going? We're happy with the state of things right now. We want to keep this going. We want to keep it going forward. If we're ranked, we want to stay ranked. If we are, in 3 consecutive conference championship games in football, we want to make it 4, and we want to win when we get there. And so for all of our different sports programs, people want to know, how can they be a part of keeping us in a successful position. And so being able to talk about, hey, this is the area where your contributions can make a big difference is important for us. I think people have been really responsive to that. Now, it doesn't mean that there haven't been questions. People have wanted clarifications on, okay, can I give to a particular sport program, or what sport programs are being impacted or being supported by the Talent Fund, or there are even people that we make the assumption, because we work in athletics, that everybody kind of knows about the house case, and so there's some people that don't even know why we're in a position to be doing this.
Lots to unpack, yeah.
Right. I've gotten the question, okay, it seems like the collective was doing a really good job of paying our student athletes, which they were. Why did you guys just decide to take that over? Did you just decide to do that and it wasn't necessary? I don't understand. It seemed like it was working fine. And so having to start from the beginning of saying, okay, there was a class action lawsuit and it got settled, and there's back pay, and then it opens up the door for the rules to change. And so we are all, across the country, moving the payment of student athletes into our athletics department. So Tulane is not doing anything differently than other schools in that regard. We are all moving in that direction. So depending on who you get in front of, some people know all of that and they really just have specific questions. Some people are completely new to the party and they have no idea why we are even doing this and what it's all about. So you try to meet people where they are. Certainly, because we're only a couple of months into this, you kind of make the assumption that you want to give more information, because we're at the beginning of the educational process in this, which is what it is, right? We're rolling out this fund that we're asking people to give to, but we also understand that we are actively providing education about what the fund is all about. And this is different than some of the other things. When we asked for money for the Green Wave Club, because it's been around for a period of time, people generally have a sense of, okay, if I'm giving to the Green Wave Club, this is what it's doing and how it's going to be used. But when you're starting something new, just beginning July 1st, then people want to know more. And so we have been working actively to try to answer questions, to try to provide information, to make sure that we're providing the appropriate education so people feel comfortable and they understand the importance of this. And we feel like in that regard it's going well. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of conversations to have, and this will be the subject of a lot of things that we do, not only this year, but as we go forward. But we're enjoying the process because it's working. People are giving. People are making significant donations to the fund, and it is really going to help us achieve our goals.
How much of a balance have you and the development team, which is now expanded in light of all of this here, have you guys had to find a balance of sorts when you talk to prospective donors or current donors about Green Wave Talent Fund, Green Wave Club? There are facilities projects happening all around
Right.
campus. Just behind us here, you got the indoor facility that's still in progress. The tennis facility is underway down on University Square. I mean, behind us here, the new things here in Ullman Stadium. The Uptown Terrace is right behind you. How do you have to strike a balance, or how has that changed? I guess for you guys going out and talking to people, hoping to contribute to what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's a great question, because if you had asked me that question, I'd probably say 2 or 3 months ago, I would say our goal is absolutely to be balanced in how we're talking about Green Wave Talent Fund, how we're talking about the Green Wave Club, how we're talking about facility needs, because we have needs in all three of those areas. All three of those things do something different for us that ultimately helps us to have success. I would say probably within the past couple of months or so, the conversation has moved toward the Green Wave Talent Fund being our biggest priority. It doesn't mean that we aren't asking for donations for the other things. We're certainly always going to defer to the intent and the wishes of the donor. And that's really the thing that helps us kind of craft our conversations, because donors will tell you what's important to them, what they want to give to, and the kind of impact they want to make. And so for those who want to have an impact on facilities, we have facility projects where they can make an impact. And for those who want to make sure that the department functions the way that it's supposed to, in a first-class way, we're supporting our student athletes in the right way, we're traveling, we're able to pay our coaches the appropriate salaries, all those things, then they get to the Green Wave Club. And for those who are really wanting to make sure that the on-field performance of our student athletes continues to be at a high level, because we're retaining our very best players, and we are able to go out and attract other new student athletes in the event that we lose some of our student athletes, then we're able to direct them toward the Green Wave Talent Fund. But more and more, it just feels that from my seat, I know that the Green Wave Talent Fund and the performance of our teams ends up being tied most closely together. And so we'll tell people, if your goal is to have an impact on the on-field, on-court, in-venue performance of our teams, if that's your goal, Green Wave Talent Fund is the way to go. And quite a few people, as we mentioned, when people are making the evaluation about whether or not they're going to come to the games and come to the stadium and watch us play, a lot of times that has to do with whether or not the teams are performing at a high level. And so that tends to be at the top of the list of things that people automatically want to see. And so it's just kind of naturally moved in the direction that, hey, if someone were to walk up to me and say, I have X amount of money to give, you have these three priorities. If it doesn't make a difference to me as a donor where the money is spent, where would you advise the money to go? I would say, as far as urgency and priorities about trying to make sure that we compete at a high level, Green Wave Talent Fund is where I would take your donation and be able to put it if you didn't direct it in another area. As I've said, it doesn't mean other priorities aren't priorities for us, but just based on where things stand and based on the fact that in order to meet our goals in this area, we're fundraising for it. that's another reason, because we have annual needs to be able to retain and attract student athletes. And so we're going into this process knowing that, hey, all of what we're doing in that space is going to be based on gifts that are made to the talent fund. That's how we're compensating those student athletes. And so we have to keep the excitement high, and we have to keep the knowledge of the fund and its purpose at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Is it safe to say that that's kind of the feedback you're getting from your coaches as well? Like that's the now primary interest, is to make sure that the talent fund is in a position to help them, and not necessarily, it was just a few years ago we talked about getting facilities updated, and that's still happening here on campus, but now it seems like the priority maybe is shifting a little bit to make sure that the coaching staffs are in a position to put together the rosters that they feel they are best equipped to compete with. And has that been, I guess, an education with some of the questions that you get from donors about the sustaining this in the future of Tulane athletics? Has that been kind of part of the education of telling people, where if you want this to be continuing to grow, this is where we need the focus to be?
It is, because that's the feedback that we get from coaches, because that's the feedback that they get from their student athletes. It's the feedback they get from prospective student athletes. That's the feedback that they get from agents that are representing the student athletes. I will have coaches tell me, student athletes, some student athletes, prospective ones, are not as interested in making official visits as they used to be, right? They are, through their representation, just inquiring about what the financial package would be for them if they make the decision to come to the university, and then based on that, they're making a decision one way or the other to be able to enroll at Tulane or to go to another university. And so we are always going to seek to put together the full package, because we feel like Tulane is a full package, right? Academically, athletically, leadership, community, growth, all the things that have traditionally been a part of the college student athlete experience. We are still emphasizing building that, growing that, and bringing that to bear on our student athletes that are here. But we also recognize the reality of where things stand right now, and that the number one question that's being asked is, how much will I be able to get if I come to this particular university? And so, yeah, I'm hearing it from our coaches, because they're hearing it from families,
Sure,
from student athletes, and from agents. And so in a fairly quick period of time, the conversation has shifted, because you're right, when I started here, I heard a lot more about facilities than I hear about it now. I still hear about it today, but not as much from our fans, from our coaches, from anyone. Everyone right now is kind of talking about the being able to pay student athletes and what that takes, because they understand that year to year, you're now seeing the very best players decide to leave one university and go to the next, because there's a bigger payday to be made in those situations. And so when you have good players on any of your teams, now for a fan, one of your biggest concerns becomes, okay, are we going to be able to keep this student athlete beyond this year? That was never really a concern, and certainly not in sports like football and basketball, and ones that didn't have the opportunity to be able to use the one-time transfer rule. So they knew if they left, they would have to sit out. But now that is a legitimate concern, and so people are worried about that, and they want to see what we can do to be able to hold on to those players or attract new ones if we're not able to do it. And so those conversations continue.
it does seem as though a committee has to vote on it here, but we seem to be trending towards a one-time transfer portal window for football in January. And
Right.
it's expected to pass, but as you know, things can change. If that does go through, is that something that you think will calm the seas a little bit of how the transfer portal, football specifically, obviously, will operate here? Will it kind of, do you hope, would limit the chaos that exists in the month of December, or does moving it to January maybe create a different set of issues when it comes to getting people and kids in for the start of a spring semester.
Yeah, I think I would describe it as being a step and a number of different steps that we probably need to take industry-wide to really try to calm the chaos. It's a step in that, okay, if it's not happening in December, it's happening in January, then you have less disruption during a time when more teams are playing, right? December, you're going to have more teams that are participating in bowl games and college football playoff than you are in January. So that certainly is a positive step. Certainly having one window instead of two, now you have one concentrated time period where you're concerned about this and you're having to retain and you're having to go out and find student athletes, and so it's less chaotic than having to do that a couple of times a year. So that's a positive step. But to your point, based on when the date is projected to be right now, here at Tulane and at a number of different places, it bumps up against the beginning of the academic year.
Right.
And so I've already had conversations with Coach Summerall talking about, he's expressed, concern that if we're bringing or identifying someone in the latter part of a 10-day or 15-day window, what's the opportunity to truly be able to turn around the process of getting that student athlete here when the end of the window bumps up right against the beginning of classes starting. And so Tulane is not the only school in that position. There are many other programs that are in a similar spot. But it just creates that type of challenge now that, okay, we've solved one type of issue, or at least made it better. But it does create a number of other challenges that we have to be able to figure out. And that's, you figure out, being in the industry for a long time, there are very few policies or procedures or laws or whatever that pass that only do one thing and it's all positive and there's no negative consequence, right? You're almost always having to deal with, okay, this is what this means, that's positive, and here's something that maybe we didn't consider that has to be dealt with on the other side of it as well.
The commissioner of the American, Tim Pernetti, has gone pretty public about his thoughts on the discussions being had around the college football playoff and its future and who or who may not be invited and how many slots exist for certain conferences. Those talks continue, specifically from two conference commissioners. There's also been the simmering of what might happen to the men's basketball tournament and expansion or what might be included there. As the AD of Tulane, I know you're talking a lot with the commissioner, Tim Pernetti, but how much are you hearing about the future of those two events and how much pushback can there realistically be from us here at Tulane, from the American, when it does seem as though the people in charge want to get something in place that benefits them more than the collective whole?
Yeah, and that's the rub right now. When you have the dynamic that currently exists, if you're at a place like Tulane or any group of six conference, you want to make sure that as authority for decision making is moving more into the hands of autonomy for conferences, that decisions are still being made in the best interest of the collective whole. And while we believe that that is the best route and the best idea for everyone, you never know exactly what's going to happen. And so, whether it's Commissioner Pernetti or others, when you hear about expansion of the NCAA tournament or you hear about the college football playoff, even if if that's going to be expanded as well in the future, you think about it in terms of access, right? And so I was looking at a quote from Jeff Jackson, the commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference, the conference that I used to be a part of at UNI, and he was quoted as saying something like, hey, when I hear about expansion of the tournament to potentially 76 teams, I think about it from a standpoint of, hey, that's a great idea. It's about time. The sooner the better. Let's do it, because I view it as I have schools within my league that are absolutely worthy of going to the tournament. And if you're expanding it, then certainly it makes it more likely, I think he used the term, I'm going to sleep better at night if I know that there are more spots that are available to make sure that we're not a one bid league that we can get multiple teams in. And so if the overall intent is, man, we're always having to leave teams out, teams that are, on the wrong side of the bubble, that are quality teams that could really make a run in the tournament, and that those teams are coming from everywhere within the industry, then expanding it is probably a good thing. If the intent is we're expanding it because within the Autonomy 4, we want to make sure that there are more spots that are coming to us, then it's not as good of a thing, because tournaments like that are built on access for schools that are the blue bloods as well as the ones that are Cinderellas. And so I think for us, access is the big thing. We want to make sure that we continue to have a seat at the table for the college football playoff. We'd love to be in a spot where we're expanding our access over time, because we believe that good football and good basketball is being played in our league and leagues that are like it. And we believe that those tournaments and those competitive events are better when there's a diversity of representation of schools from a number of different leagues. We know upsets happen all the time. It's one of the things that makes college sports and sports in general special, but certainly on the college level. And so if we can keep an eye on any type of expansion opportunity from a perspective of how do we make sure that we are continuing to diversify the people that are being invited to the party, so to speak, because it makes it a richer, more competitive, more dynamic environment, then we end up in the right place.
We are about a month away from the start of the basketball season here, and this will not be a normal start to the year for the men's basketball team because of what happened back in July and the loss of Greg Glenn. To my understanding, this is the first, I think, student athlete that has passed away, current student athlete, since you have been in an administrative role in your time in college athletics. You don't have to go into any sort of details here, but what have the conversations been like with the program since this happened in July? Now they're back to practice here and getting ready for the start of the year. What has this is uncharted territory for Ron Hunter. This has never happened in his time either. So what has this been like with that program to make sure they are supported and have what they need to honor Greg and get ready for November 3rd?
Yeah, and it's certainly been a difficult situation for everybody involved to lose a young man like Greg in the prime of his young life. Is just a terrible situation to have to deal with for everyone. And, there's no definitive way that you're supposed to go about handling this. And so we're all trying to figure it out. And for me, it's actually the second time that I've had a student athlete pass away. We had a student athlete when I was at the University of Northern Iowa, a swimmer, who died by suicide,
Okay.
Actually. And there was another student athlete that actually, they weren't a current student athlete, that had passed away as well. So for me, it's actually the second active student athlete to lose, and gut-wrenchingly difficult in both of those situations, whether you've had experience with it or not. So you concentrate and keep your focus on trying to make sure you're giving the student athletes what they need. The student athletes become the focus. And you know that if you've gone through any significant type of grief in your life, it is not a continuous, okay, I'm low, and then with each day I get higher and higher, and it's just kind of going in a straight line. You're going to have days when you wake up and you're feeling good, and you're going to have days where you wake up and you're not feeling good. There are going to be days where this bothers you more than that. There's going to be days when the grief of it strikes you more. There's moments where certain things happen where, you feel like you're good and you have a good day, and then something happens that reminds you of your loved one who's passed away, and all of a sudden it changes your mood and right in the middle of the day. So anyone who's going through grief knows that it doesn't happen in a straight line. There are good days and bad days, and you there are good weeks, and then all of a sudden you can have a couple of bad days. And so I think if you were to talk to Coach Hunter, he would probably tell you that that's part of what happens with the team, in that there are good days, good practices, and days where he feels like they're struggling more, and that's something that will probably continue for a period of time. And the only thing you can do is to really support and love those guys, have them know that no matter how they feel or what they're feeling, that there's no wrong way to be able to deal with this. And maybe I would say, though, perhaps the only wrong way is if you get yourself into a spot where emotionally you feel like you're so low that you can't come out of it. But all of us are in a spot where we can feel low for a period of time, and hopefully we can bring ourselves out of it, or there are people who are around us that can help us to do that. And so we try to surround the program with people like that, people from our behavioral health unit who are available to talk to our student athletes and staff if they wanted to have those conversations, to make sure that they're doing okay, and to make sure that we're making the right types of decisions, to be able to honor Greg and his legacy, to be able to support the guys who are currently on the team, and to think about next steps and the best way that we can help the team continue to prepare for the upcoming season. But it's probably no surprise to anyone that there's no guidebook, no book that you can turn to that tells you exactly how to do this. I believe we have the right people in Ron and his staff to be able to lead the team with the kind of respect and sensitivity that we need to have during a difficult time.
You know, I've heard from a lot of fans since this happened about their sadness for it, because that when you saw Greg play, that was him as a person, that just the life that he led, the character that he was. But they've asked a lot about just what they can do to support here, and it might just sound simplistic, but like coming out and supporting that team when they start play on November 3rd is the first step in that, and letting them know that they have that team's back.
Absolutely. I think every student athlete will tell you, no matter the sport program, they can feed off the energy of the fan base. And so when people are coming to games and coming to events, it can have a huge impact on the way the team plays. The environment of the arena can have an impact, good or bad, on the way the team plays. And so when our team shows up, if they walk into an arena that's packed, if they feel the energy and the excitement around the team, they're going to feed off of that. They're much more likely to have a better performance based on the positive energy that's in the building. But now the additional feeling when you're coming off of such a tragic situation is just the feeling of, you know, having fans there and having their presence there. It's an extra added, in my opinion, you know, benefit to these young men who are still struggling emotionally. So it's not just about how to help them, you know, have success and win a game, but it's a way of being able to say, you know, I see you. I'm here. I am attempting to be able to support you in any way that I can as you go through this difficult situation by making the investment, not just the investment of money, but the investment of time, to say that you being here at Tulane is important. You being a part of this team is important. I support this team. I support what you're trying to accomplish, and it's important enough to me to be in this arena, to, you know, not watch it on TV, not watch it on my phone, not do all the other things that I could do that would be more convenient, but to have you know that you and this team are important enough that I'm going to make the investment to be in the arena, and we're going to do everything we can to make it an enjoyable night for everybody. But while I think that always matters to our student athletes, when you have student athletes that you know have been through something significant, the people that are taking the time to make that kind of investment mean that much more.
So what's next for you here, David, as we hit October? Got a couple of home football games coming up here on the schedule. Volleyball will be back home here as they hit kind of the home stretch of the season already. It's amazing how fast that happens. We'll have swimming getting going here. They've got a couple home events. what's your calendar look like here in October before you hit the winter part of the season and when basketball starts up?
Yeah, so you continue to try to find ways to be able to support your student athletes, and so I was just looking the other day. There's a trip that I think volleyball is taking on a weekend where we don't have football later on in the month. I think it's maybe Wichita and Rice, to see if I can be a part of that trip and go and support the team. You look to, cross country and their championships that'll be coming up. So I had a chance to be able to go to the conference championship and then the national championship race in Madison last year. So being able to get to and support as many of our events as I can, whether it's, you start to roll into championship season for your fall sports, and as you mentioned, then your winter sports are starting up, and so you start to think about how you can be at those events both home and away. And so a lot of your calendar outside of the things that you're doing with donor events, and we're going to have an athletic director's reception that's coming up here in a couple of weeks, and we're doing a donor event in New York in November, and we're going to have an open house on Wave Weekend that we did last year. We'll do that in Wilson. So we're continuing to try to make sure that we're outreaching to our fans, to our donors, to our alums, talking about the program, expressing appreciation, trying to build our fan base. That's something that we're going to consistently do. We want to have people feel like we're accessible and transparent. They may not always agree with what I have to say, but I hope they feel like I'm always willing to show up in front of them and say it and then answer questions. And certainly if people disagree, then that's okay. We're not going to run away from that. Those can be challenging conversations, but they're important conversations. And I think part of the responsibility of being in this position is being willing to show up and talk about some of the things that are challenging within our environment. But in addition to all of that, trying to be in as many places as you can be to support your teams, to support your coaches. And so trying to schedule out to where, okay, football's playing on a Thursday night, or they're playing on a Friday, or they're playing on a Saturday. And then depending on that week, what does that open up to be able to do? Can you then, because football's playing on a Thursday, you can get to a game on a Saturday that maybe you weren't going to be able to get to previously. So just actively looking at your schedule for the month of October and trying to be in at least 2 or 3 places at the same time, and trying to make sure that our student athletes and coaches know that I and we support them as they go out and compete for the Green Wave.
So if you ever want to switch spots during a football game, if you want to go over to that radio booth, I'll come over here, hang out for a bit. You can take the headset, hang out with Steve and Maddie and the crew over there for a quarter. I'm down for the trade if you want to.
That'd be kind of fun. I don't know if it'd be fun for the fans. They'd be like, who is this guy and what is he talking about on the radio? But it would probably be enjoyable for me. Probably a little scary, but because who knows?
And I think I'd frighten the family a little bit. So.
Maybe a little bit. I might frighten the fans. You were asking about what is it like to watch a football game with me. Well, people might have a chance to find out exactly, and they might say, "Okay, bring Corey back and let David go into his suite where he's not yelling at us through the microphone."
Thank you for doing this, David. Appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure. Happy to do it anytime.